Hello everyone and welcome to something completely different. We are going to be playing Paranautical Activity, a game which is new in beta roguelike, which is currently for sale on the developer's website in Desura. I'll post a link to the developer's website. This game, as mentioned, is in beta. There are definitely more things that are going to be added, things that are going to be changed. So some of my criticisms I'm going to mention of this build may be fixed, most likely will be fixed from what I've read by the final version. But still, I feel like I should give a view of this build, not just assume that the final version is going to be different. So we are going to be entering in here in just a second that we're going to be entering in here in a second, which is going to be hopefully working this time. The first time I tried to record and hung up here trying to start the game. My laptop is not the best for recording setup, so this might not be the best. This might not work at all. But we will see what happens. There we go. So we have loaded in. We're now in this little room here. The elevator here started. We have started with this machine gun, which is one of my favorite weapons. There are a variety of weapons you can start with. Each one plays quite differently, really. This one is one of my favorites, as well as the shotgun. So as you can see, the map here is kind of like in The Binding of Isaac, where you have a layout of rooms. Anytime we walk into one of these rooms, enemies will spawn, at which point we will have to fight them to get out of the room. The boss rooms are, you can see the boss room over there actually outlined in red. There's also a mini boss room, which is outlined in blue, and a shop, which is in green. Each of these are abilities to get items to move on. So let's jump into some combat here. As you can see, this is kind of laid out to be almost a first-person Binding of Isaac. You're going to be running around these rooms, shooting up your enemies, and in very similar ways they all have patterns of how they act, how they attack, that you will pick up, as well as a variety of different enemies. On the early floors here, it is relatively limited in what you'll run into. I have gotten a bit later in the game, and the variety does get much bigger as you go on. There are a lot of enemies that you don't see until later floors. In fact, I think I've noticed that it was pretty much at least one new enemy type per floor is added in. So it really does open up the game as you go. There are some elements of almost bullet hell at times, trying to get out of the way of the shots that are being fired at you. But nothing too major. Someone who doesn't really play those games, like me, doesn't have issues with it, and it's not to that extent really. But it is enough to where you have to be constantly on the move if you hope to not get hit. We can take a look in the shop here. We could pick up this grenade launcher, which is going to fire a bomb. Honestly, it's very hard to use, and I feel like the reward for it is not worth the risk. The flip-flops here are going to let us walk on lava, which gets very important later. But the trigger finger is going to be fire rate up, and I do want to pick that up, because as you can see, we fire much faster now. I'm sure this recording is not doing as well as it could be, but I know it's a little bit of framiness on my end that I don't normally have. But we're going to keep going here and show off some more of the game. As mentioned, this is available on the developer's website for $5.99. Right now, I've been having a lot of fun with this game. As mentioned, there are some criticisms I'll get to for this build, but I feel like this is a very good basis for the game, and I feel like it's only going to go uphill from here as it nears closer to its completion. Unfortunately, at this current state, the number of items is not that high. I feel like I haven't seen any new items in a few runs now. So it does seem kind of like they still have some improvement to do in terms of how many items there are. Otherwise, it doesn't have... Once again, it's easy to compare it to Isaac. But part of the fun of Isaac was there were so many items to pick up and see how they reacted not only to different situations, but to each other. In this game, it does not have that point yet. It is at a point where there are some items, and they're mostly just stat increases. So I would like to see more on the item front and more varied type of items instead of just being stat increases and a couple of small changes otherwise. But that I'm sure will have a chance of happening in later builds. For right now we're going to fight this spider mini-boss. He's not that hard. Really a lot of the mini-bosses seem to be pretty easy once you get their patterns down and once you get a method to kill them down. Things that were killing me every single time I went in to begin with are now not killing me nearly as much. Here's one item that I've seen but never picked up before, the powder keg. More powerful bombs. That's kind of what I guess what it did. That's one thing that I do kind of question in this game, is that all the items are very much openly descriptive of what they are. For example, they're more powerful bombs. You know, you get some. There's one item that'll give you health down, but it'll also give you like 3 stats up, damage, fire rate, and I think speed up. That is something that I guess is a benefit in some ways, but I also enjoyed, once again, comparing it to Binding of Isaac, I enjoyed the ability to find out what the items did, with the little glimpses of what they did given. To have something that's so completely descriptive of exactly what the items are going to do, it almost takes it away to where you see the item once and you know all the different things that it does for you. You might not know the specifics of, you know, how it works, but you'll know what stats it's going to give you, and you know all the details of everything it affects. You know, for a while there, when I was playing Isaac, the Pact, for example, I didn't realize right away was a fire rate up. It took me a while to notice that. In this game, things would just say, you know, this is a damage and fire rate upgrade. And I feel like that is not a bad strategy, it's just one that I would prefer the other side, so it's not really a complaint so much as personal preference. And I'm hoping that some of the more obscure items that they might add eventually will hold up to that. Now, we are going to go fight the boss here. Hopefully get enough to go buy those sandals. This guy is not really that much of a pain. He's actually one of the easier bosses, but he's also kind of annoying because he takes a long time and a lot of hits to kill. Because as you can see here, very soon he splits into 2, who each get their own health bar. Well, not their own health bar, but it refills the boss's health bar essentially when they come in. So he does take a while to kill, even though he's not that difficult as a whole. I should be focusing on these small ones before I kill that big one. And I'm taking a lot of damage. We may not survive this boss fight. From what I hear, there was just a mega update to this game. I actually picked it up right after that had happened, but apparently it added quite a bit of content. I'm going to go as far as to guess that it probably won't be the last time there are huge updates like this going through the game. But for right now, we're going to fight through this. I do hope that's the case. I am really enjoying my time with this game and would love to see it expanded on, have more items in the game, have some more, maybe even some more environments would be nice, because everything so far is pretty much the same environment, just with little cosmetic differences. The 5th floor, the latest I've gotten to, does change things up a bit, but not a whole lot. We're going through here. This guy's going to give us his wings. As you can see there, all the boss items have, the item was very much connected to the boss. This is true of all the boss items that drop. Essentially, you're going to, every time you fight a boss, throughout any run, you're going to get the same item from that boss. The mini-bosses are different, but the bosses themselves are always going to give you the same item, and it's always going to be something based on the boss. I would like to see some more randomization to that, see some general all-purpose items added in that can be randomized into it. It just seems like there are some runs where you're fighting a boss on the 1st floor who gives you something that you don't want, and you almost feel like it would be better to just restart and look for a different boss that's going to give you a good item instead of fighting through it. Or there's one boss who comes up on floors 3 and 4 who gives an item that I don't see any reason to take. It seems like the worst weapon in the game from what I've seen so far. In terms of it is very difficult to actually make useful. And so some things like that, if there was a bit of randomization to the boss drops, it wouldn't feel so disappointing knowing that you're fighting a boss to get no reward. But at the same time, some of them are also very nice, so it's kind of nice to see you're fighting this boss, you're going to get something good. So that may be personal preference, but I really feel like the game would benefit from giving some randomness to the boss drops, that you could have a different run when you get the same bosses. These mobs are annoying. They fire homing shots, and the homing is incredible on them. You pretty much have to stick by a wall while you're fighting them, so that when the shots home around you, they end up bashing into the wall, because they do not stop homing until they run into something. This makes things a little bit difficult to dodge, and in some cases I feel like the room layouts don't really allow you to dodge them. For example, if you don't have the flip-flops that we picked up to walk on lava, when there's lava in a room, it becomes very hard to keep to the outside edge around the doors, and this makes it so that you are kind of around the walls, and this makes it so that you are kind of stuck taking damage from these mobs because you can't actually get out of the way of their shots. And that seems like kind of a frustrating point to me. It's not a game breaker, you can still survive, but it does mean that you're more likely to take damage that maybe you don't need to if the shots weren't quite as good at homing. And as you can see there, I just ran away from that shot for a while and it still hit me. And these guys do take a lot of damage to get rid of too, so it's not like you can just kind of jump through them. So we're going to restart here. I'm doing one, maybe two more runs, depending on how long it takes, just to showcase a little bit more of the items in the game a little bit further, hopefully, if I can do good on one of these runs. The music in this game I really do enjoy. Unfortunately though, it seems like there's only one track currently. I'm not sure if there's a plan to add more to it, but right now it does seem kind of like after a while it gets repetitive on you. What do we have in here? We got the wing foot, which is going to be a speed increase. Rum, which is the one I was talking about earlier with the health down, the damage up, and the fire rate up. And then we got the sickle here, which is another one of the starting items. You can kind of think of this as Mom's knife. You're going to throw it out, it's going to come back to you. It does very high damage. Unfortunately, it's also not very effective against a lot of enemies, so I prefer not to run with that one. We are going to be fighting this guy again. It's not really a plus or a negative, it's just another long fight instead of... Well, really all of them are long, but this one does seem to be one of the longer ones just because of the mini guys. But we will do our best to take them out. As you can see, we're getting a lot of bullets on the screen right now. Nothing that's not manageable, but it's definitely something where if you stop moving for a second, you're going to be taking damage. So the game very much encourages you to keep moving, keep running. Once you get it down a little bit, then you can kind of dodge more selectively, but... So this guy is almost split up. Almost took damage there from dodging too late. And now with two of them again, I kind of have to start this running around in circles bit again. So yeah, as mentioned, this is available on the developer's website as well as on Desura. They are both very good, and they're both good options, of course. I personally purchased on the developer's website. It is $5.99 currently to buy into the beta. I believe there is I believe if I recall correctly, there is a Steam greenlight going for this game, which I will link to, but I believe I also heard something about they're working on something that might allow them to bypass greenlight, working with a publisher deal. So we'll see. I'm not sure how that's going, but that is what I've heard on other coverage of the game. I will take a look after this to confirm if there's a green light link and link it, just in case that does not go through or if that is false information that I've heard. I'm sorry I didn't think to research that beforehand, but double jump can become kind of useful for bosses like this in order to cause them to shoot up in the air at you instead of down at the ground. But this guy will be dead, and what are we going to get for him? This is the spring. This is going to give me higher jumps. This is actually one item combination that I haven't found yet, is the higher jumps and the double jump. That seems to let me jump all the way to the ceiling quite easily, which is kind of cool. That's going to give me a lot of options for evasion. I was kind of hoping we would get the shotgun this time. It seems to be the best for dealing with those moths that gave me so much problem last run. Because it's a spread shot, you don't have to aim exactly, and since they move around so much, it does make it very possible to get around them. And it does make it very possible with the shotgun to just aim in their general area and hit them that way. This gun becomes really very good when you get some damage ups and some fire rate ups. I'm kind of hoping that we can pull off getting the 250 required to get the with these small rooms without many enemies. That seems kind of unlikely right now. I figure we probably don't have much more than the 2 rooms we see on the map left. One thing that I've noticed about the layout of the game is that because it's first person, you can look through these doors before you go through them, and the enemy spawns are all set to the room layout. Oop, I missed one of these guys. Oh, and sometimes you can get caught under stairs a bit like that, which causes some problems. Yeah, it causes some problems because you can get kind of stuck and have to move a specific way to get out. Like, I can't move. Like, sometimes you'll get caught where you can't actually move forward for a minute, which does cause some annoyances. It's not too bad, but it's enough to be noticeable. But back to what I was saying, you can look through the doors. I'll show you in just a second what I mean by this. Let's go over to this room that we haven't been in yet. So, with enemy spawns being set within different room layouts that are possible, you'll notice when we walk up to this door that we can look in here and see the layout of the room. Now, if you've been playing the game enough, you can recognize the layouts of the room and what enemies are going to spawn, and know what's going to happen before you even enter into the room. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It does give you a chance to prepare for the room, but I also feel it takes away a little bit of the surprise of walking into the room and dealing with what shows up, because eventually as you play more, I'm sure it becomes very easy to look at the room, know what you're going to fight, and prepare accordingly, instead of trying to figure out, once you get in there, what's the best way to handle it. I could pick up the wing foot, but I don't really want the speed up right now. I'd rather hold on to my money for something a little bit better, hopefully on the next floor. So we're going to go down to floor 2. We're going to be running into those moths again here, which are never all that fun to work with. And we're going to blow up that barrel before we go in, just so it doesn't get blown up in our face. When I am using the rifle, when I am using this here, I do like to try to keep. Oh my god, no, I'm stuck. There we go. That's honestly happening more often than it has for the most part. It does happen a decent amount if you're not careful where you're walking, but it's happened to me a few times already in this video, and that's more often than it normally does. But the moths, I feel like, are good prime targets to take out first in a room if you can, but at the same time, if you're able to just walk around the edges, it's also easier to take out the other things. The moths are harder to hit because they move around a lot and are they're very mobile and they are very unpredictable. So I do feel like there are better options a lot of times than taking them out first. But if you have the ability to, then you don't have to deal with the homing shots the whole room. This room might be the death of me for this run. There we go, that guy's dead, so we will survive, unless I make a horrible mistake. We do get 1 health. Now I do have a couple options here. I could go fight the boss, or I could try to explore more first. I think the smarter decision is to go try to explore more, so unfortunately instead of showing off another boss, we're gonna go look around and we might die. I do know most of the first floor and second floor bosses pretty well. Much like Isaac, it seems like boss availability is ruled by what floor you're on. The first and second floors seem to have a tree of bosses that you can find. Second and third floors, and we're dead. But yeah, it seems like each set of 2 floors has its kind of own possible boss spawns. And now we get the shotgun, which is good, because this will make the last run of the video and I can show off my favorite weapon. But yeah, you can guess which bosses are going to show up and what bosses are possible by what floor you're on. There's some that are rarer than others, of course. Some that are more common. And I cannot aim worth a shit right now. But, so yeah, you can kind of know which bosses are going to spawn based on what floor you're on, which is definitely a benefit. It gives you some way to prepare if you know that you can't fight, and if you know that you're going to fight someone who's not very good against a certain weapon that's available on the floor, or you know there's a good chance of it, then you can prepare accordingly. The other weapons do spawn, as we saw earlier with the grenade launcher. They aren't extremely common, but they are common enough where you usually have a chance of switching your item out if you want to, if you survive a decent length. I know there's another one of the mini guys around here somewhere. Over this way it appears, yes. There we go. Probably the worst slowdown I've gotten in this game. Like recording right now, it's a little bit worse and more noticeable than it has been when I wasn't recording. That's for sure. The only thing that I have noticed is sometimes when there's a lot of pickups on the ground, when they're all lit up and everything together, it does seem to cause a little bit of jumpiness. Not too bad in an ordinary playthrough. It's a little bit more noticeable, as I mentioned in this recording, but it's definitely something worth noting for this build. It might be a good idea to allow those lights to be turned off, and by extension you could kind of do away with that problem. Now I have kind of messed this room up by missing a lot, but I should still be able to pull out of this without taking damage. That one's dead, and that one is dead as well. So we're only up to 150-ish gold. It's not very much. We might not be able to get anything good in this first gift shop here, but we'll take a look. We got 3 things here. We got spinach, which is going to give us more health and make us throw bombs farther. Shield lever, which gives us more shield drops. And a mystery box, which I believe contains a random item. I haven't actually bought that yet, but I'm thinking it's either random item or random consumable, so armor, health, or bombs. I'm not entirely sure which it is since I haven't used it yet, but it's going to be one of those 2 things. I do know that the developer has likened the difficulty of this game to Isaac and Spelunky, which is why I kind of jumped to assuming the mystery box was probably going to be an item, because in Spelunky that's what it comes out to. But at the same time, I could be horribly wrong in that respect. This game definitely does bring back some of the feeling that Isaac had at first, of discovering the items, of wandering around fighting these difficult enemies, of dying and learning more about what you need to do to survive next time. But at the same time, I also feel like at the moment, because there aren't that many items, it doesn't have the same level of replayability, simply because there's not as much to discover yet. Presumably, I know they're probably going to add more items to this, and that will alleviate my concerns quite a bit. But it is one thing to think of if you're thinking of buying the beta right now, is that there aren't that many items in the game, and so you might run out of new stuff to discover pretty quick, and then just be playing based on stuff that you know. Of course, there are, for the later bosses, they have their items that you can only get if you survive to them. So until you get further in the game, you aren't going to be finding all the items. But in terms of the ones you can pick up at any point whenever they might be in the shop or drop from a mini-boss, there is a very low amount of them. This jellyfish is one of my favorite bosses to fight because, quite frankly, he's extremely easy. I've only taken a hit to him when I was purposely trying to, actually. He just kind of wanders around. If you get hit by his tentacles, you take damage. Otherwise, you're fine. He is one of few mini-bosses that don't spawn anything or have any enemies with them in the room when they start. And what do we get from this? This is going to be Trigger Finger, which is, of course, fire rate up is great with the shotgun. And we are going to follow around here. These guys aren't annoying when they're the only spawns in the room because you can keep an eye on them. But when especially when they spawn with the big demon guys that fire continuously, they do become kind of difficult because it's hard to keep an eye on where they are and what they're doing while you're worrying about fighting the boss. Speaking of the boss, we will go fight now. This is going to be Mr. Skullman here. He spawns a lot of spiders, which gets really annoying. The spiders are very fast. They do damage you based on contact. So they can be annoying. Usually my strategy for him has been to just kill the skull as fast as possible and clean up the mess afterwards, just trying to avoid the spiders as well as I can in the meantime. Jumping goes a long way toward that. But as you can see, there are a lot of spiders to kill after the boss is dead, which is because he spawns a whole lot of things. And once we finish the boss, we are going to get his item, which is one that I found, if you get the right synergy of items, it seems to be pretty decent, but otherwise, in my opinion, it just seems to be kind of almost difficult to use, which is floating bombs. Essentially now when we throw a bomb, it's just going to float off in the direction we throw it until it explodes. That's both a good thing and a bad thing to have in an item. It's good because it makes it very easy to aim them exactly where you want to, but at the same time it's kind of bad because quite frankly it makes it so that you can't, what am I going for? In the fact that it can float past enemies instead of necessarily landing on the ground in front of them. So I don't think we got enough for either of the things in the shop. We are going to move down to the next floor here. One of my favorite graphical glitches is shooting the door before it goes away and the bullet holes stay there. And this should be a little bit easier now with the shotgun. As you can see, the mobs are falling a lot easier now that I can aim just in their general area and hit them instead of having to aim directly at them. And these guys are dead, and now we just got these big demons left, I think. Nope, we still have at least one more of those mini guys. And we're just worried about taking these two out. It is definitely very much a game about knowing how to keep yourself moving and keep your target on. In terms of controls, everything is perfectly fine. The sensitivity of the mouse when you first start is way up there. If you were good enough to use that, I give you praise, but otherwise you're going to want to turn that down first thing when you start up the game. Otherwise you're going to be having a lot of trouble keeping up with the movements of your mouse and how small the movement moves your aimer. But this guy is not too bad. These hoppers will become normal enemies on later floors. Essentially their gimmick is they get close to you and then they blow up, and when you shoot them they blow up. So when I can get enough shots to kill this guy through, he is going to explode, which will of course damage you and any nearby enemies. It can be useful if you're prepared for it. If you're not, it's kind of annoying. We got a grenade launcher again. This thing does improve in utility a little bit, I feel, once you get the floating bombs. As you can see, we can kind of use physics to our advantage to ricochet them. And that also solves one of the problems I have with the grenade launcher, which is flying enemies like the mobs you really can't hit unless they come down to your level. but I also feel like it is not necessarily a good weapon even still until you get some other upgrades to go with it. There is one that gives you sticky bombs, which I feel would help immensely, but in general it just seems like it's a lot harder to use than the other ones, and it doesn't do a significant amount more damage, so it seems like it's a high risk but low reward type of situation. I can fire my shotgun off several times on time. It takes me to fire that off once, and it'll do more damage, and it'll do probably at least as much damage with each shot that is landed as the bombs would do. And so I feel like if it did the same amount of damage as a bomb that you drop on the floor did, it's a different story, but right now it seems to be more based on being a weapon damage factor, and that is something entirely different and something that isn't quite strong enough to make up for the difficulty of use. So that is definitely my least favorite item that I've run into in the game so far. We'll go to this gift shop here. We are going to find the lightning bolt is good. It gives you speed and fire rate up, but we're going to take mega bullets for damage up and the spring for higher jumping. We might have been able to afford the mega bullets and the lightning bolt on this floor, but I would prefer the higher damage and the higher jumping because it gives me more options, and it means that I'm going to get rid of things that are going to kill me faster instead of having to deal with them long term. As you can see, the mobs are already going down faster. The enemies on the later floors are royally ridiculous. There are some that are just... I mean, the speed upgrades are almost imperative to survive the game when you get to the later enemies that are extremely fast. But for now, it's not that important. Hopefully we'll run into it again. We will be fighting this guy. Of all the ones I could fight, he is probably my favorite to fight with this setup I got going right now. And we will fight through him. As usual, the shotgun spread shot does give a little bit of utility in the fact that we can aim in the general area of these guys and still hit them. Of course, we aren't doing as much damage necessarily as we could because we aren't hitting with all of the spread shot, but we're doing a decent enough amount to keep his health moving downwards, and when he gets closer we're doing high damage. Of course the damage up also helped for that. I find that my strategy when it comes to stats is pretty much the same as it is in Isaac, and that is to build up my damage as high as possible in order to take less hits and do more and get rid of enemies faster. Whether that's a viable strategy for the later game or not, I don't actually know. I just know that it has gotten me to, as I mentioned, around the 5th floor, which is, I think, pretty well into the game. Of course, that round I also had a lot of other upgrades going for me. That wasn't like it was just I was building up damage and nothing else. I had a lot of stuff going for me that run. I was getting money like crazy. I think I bought out every shop I came across. So we were definitely getting the items that we needed to survive easily. But then I got killed by the really fast spawns I was talking about, which may have been the cause of taking the one item that is essentially the tub of lard, a good health upgrade in return for a speed down. It's lard, literally, in this game, but I forget what the exact item name is. I think it's a can of lard, or it's the whale who you fight to get its name's lard or something like that. Since we didn't fight the whale in this run, we aren't going to be getting that. He is one of the first 2 floor bosses. That is one thing that I find very low quantity of, is health upgrades. It seems like if you want to get your health up, there are very few options. I think that's actually not a bad thing. They usually raise it by a couple hearts apiece, from what I've seen. Which gives you, obviously, one item has the utility of a couple. And it makes sure that you don't get so much health that the game becomes trivial. For those of you who are experienced with Binding of Isaac, you know that you can build up so much health that you can pretty much just tank the rest of the game and not have to worry about dying. That's not something that's the case with this run, with this game. it is very much that you are constantly at risk. It has, honestly, the health situation feels more like Spelunky, where if one thing goes wrong, it can be game over very quickly. Unfortunately, it does not seem like we're going to be getting very much farther for this run, and this will be the last run of the video. I'm not sure if people would be interested in seeing me play this more. I kind of hate to play through too much of it with my limited recording time, but I would be open to doing more videos on this if there's interest. It is definitely a game worth playing more of, and I will be playing more of it for sure. It's just a matter of whether I'm going to be allocating some of my limited recording time to it, or if I am going to be just playing it in my free. I'm just playing it while I've got other stuff going on and pausing a lot. But I will do my best if people wanted to throw in some more videos of it. I don't know. There's the last moth, and I wasn't by the wall, but luckily I got there before the shots hit me. But yeah, I will definitely be willing, if people are interested, to turn this into a fuller playthrough. It's just a matter of, once again, I'm not sure how much I'm with my recording schedule. I'm not sure how that would shake out in terms of recording. What was the other part of this? Oh yeah, when it comes to the videos as well, I feel like in just a couple hours of play, I've already become mostly familiar with every item I've come across. And so I'm not sure how interesting it would be in the fact that I don't really see very many new items popping up anymore. And so there wouldn't be any kind of discovery to it, which is, I'm not sure if people would enjoy that as much as some of the guys who started Let's Playing this when they did their first playthrough. But we will see how that shakes out. For now, we're going to try to survive the third floor here. What else was in the shop real quick? I forget if there was anything else I wanted. There's a heart laying there I should definitely pick up. And jump. Double jump is very nice. Oh yeah, the lightning bolt, which we can't afford, unfortunately. We probably would have had enough to get the damage up and the lightning bolt, which might have been the smart decision, but I'm not unhappy with the one that I made. The increased fire rate is a DPS boost, and that makes it very much that we're going to keep doing more damage than we would have done without it. So we're going to go down to the next floor here, and we will head this way. Okay. And here we start seeing those little hopper dudes and common enemies instead of only being spawned on the mini boss that we fought them on earlier. They aren't really too much of a threat normally. They do seem to keep their distance most of the time well enough where they don't really get close enough to damage you as they're supposed to. But at the same time, they have snuck up on me a couple times and hit me, and sometimes they get close enough where the shot that kills them ends up hurting you too. Very much just a type of enemy that, as an example there, very much a type of enemy that encourages you to, once again, keep your mind off of the dodging that is imperative to survival in order to keep your eye on them. Much like the Moth's homing shots, it definitely throws a wrench into your plans of focusing on that dodging. So we'll come in here. Unfortunately, we have two weapons for sale. Gilead's gun isn't bad. It's going to fire these plasma bolts. I'm going to stick with the shotgun. The sickle here is also, explained before, not bad, but not great. The anchor is an item that I don't really see the use of just yet. Essentially, it causes you to fall faster, which I guess could be beneficial if you're trying to dodge by jumping, but okay, this could be our end here because the lava is going to damage us every time we land on it, and I don't have a way to survive that. But did we survive? We did. There was only one enemy in that room. So 3 health. I am going to go in here and fight this guy. Oh man, this is my least favorite boss in the game. This guy is a royal asshole. These chainsaws he spawns out of the ground aren't too bad. You know, I wonder if I could, since I've got the... Oh my god. Okay, that was bad. if I can just stand up here and be relatively... Nope, that answers that question. So anyway, that was my quickish look at Paranautical activity. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I did a good job of showing off why I enjoyed this game and saying things I think it could improve on. As mentioned, it's still in beta, so it could very much still go on to improve all those things. Take them with a grain of salt for the final game. But when it comes to the current beta build, they do all hold true. I would still highly recommend it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I have not beaten the game yet in a couple hours of play. I'm still getting used to the different weapons. Honestly, outside of the shotgun and the assault rifle, I am not very good with any of the others. So I do highly recommend this game. It is very fun. If you enjoy shooters, if you enjoyed Binding of Isaac, you're probably going to enjoy it. For now, that's going to be all I got to say. Thank you all for stopping by and watching this. I hope that this has been enlightening to you in some way if you haven't heard of this game before. Please leave any comments or feedback you can, and I will see you on my next video whenever that may be. Have a good one, guys. Bye.